Yahakui is a high dimension being from the series Kado The Right Answer, who offers humanity 3 gifts: the Wams, the Sansa, and Nomus. The Wams, which are an object of infinite renewable, safe and clean energy that always produce the correct amount of energy to whatever they're attached to, which Yahakui also offers the knowledge of how to make them to humanity. The Sansa, which allows humanity to never need to sleep again just by looking at it. And the Nomus, that is so hard to say, I've started to take about 10 times. And the Nomus. Try saying that. And the try saying that 3 times first. And the Nomus, which is an item that allows humanity to control gravity. And the Nomus, I can't do it. It's a tongue twister. I've made a new tongue twister. But even so, I thought it'd be interesting to theorize on what the ramifications of introducing such technology to humanity would be. Turns out, it's quite depressing. This video made me incredibly depressed writing. And if I have to suffer, so do too you. That was the wrong way around. So too do you. So, let's talk about what the ramifications of Yahakui's gifts to humanity would actually be. The first gift, the Wams, would cause the most instantaneous and noticeable change to society. The introduction of the Wams would solve the power resource problem, and mean we no longer need to rely on fossil fuel based products. Instead, it would allow for entire power grids to be powered off a single pair of Wams, which unlike current energy production factories, release 0 CO2 into the atmosphere.
The Wam don't emit even an infinitesimal trace of CO2. They are truly clean energy.
On a surface level, the Wams seem like the answer to our prayers, the golden item, the I don't know why I'm going with this metaphor. On the surface level, they seem like the best thing ever. And in many regards, yes, they are. On the surface level, if we solely look at the effect the Wams would have on the production of energy, yes, they're God's gift to Earth. In no longer needing to rely on fossil fuel for energy, acts like oil mining, fracking, drilling, and tar sand extraction would drop to a fraction of what it is now, due to only being needed for products such as industrial lubrication, and the devastating damage it does to the environment would drop to a minuscule amount. So, that all sounds like a good thing, right? Where does the bad come in? I'm getting to that. That was so sassy, I'm sorry. While the Wams would offer unlimited power, solving the problem of the energy crisis, it would also mean that job positions for those who work in power plants, fuel shipping, fuel mining, resource management, resource negotiation, global trade, manufacturing for products that go into the power-related objects, items or structures would drop to much smaller numbers, which would lead to the instantaneous restructuring of the world and the dissolvement of millions of jobs, if not hundreds of millions, leading to millions or hundreds of millions of people being left unemployed and a society where there will never be enough jobs for the population anymore. Yeah, suddenly Wams are seeming not so great, huh? I mean, Wams on themselves are great. They would, fix the world, but the structure we have in place would need to be destroyed for that. So in order to fix the world, you first need to destroy it. And that means a lot of people are put in unfortunate situations. Kind of a catch-22, isn't it? Fortunately though, this would lead to an increase in jobs in electrical engineering, such as electrical vehicles and Wam production factories. So even though the introduction of the Wams did dissolve hundreds of millions of jobs, at least they also introduced a few thousand jobs. So, bright side. Maybe not so much bright side as very ever so slightly illuminated side. Still jobs though. And these factories would create a necessary job to maintain the production of Wams on Earth. However, as the series explains, only some people are able to actually create the Wams, meaning such a job would be limited to only those capable of creating Wams, despite the fact that humanity would become reliant on them. And as the series also explains, it's far easier for younger minds to create the Wams, meaning of the hundreds of millions of fossil fuel related jobs, only those who have a certain kind of mind would be applicable for this job.
In order to fabricate the Wam, a sense of the anisotropic is required. The more developed one's brain is for this universe, the more difficult it is to adapt to the anisotropic. This is why your elderly have so much trouble comprehending the structure of the Wam.
So that would mean only a select few can do it.
Incorrect. Everyone can. Some are more capable than others.
Which would most likely eliminate the vast majority of workers who have been in the business for any amount of time over 10 years, or even 5 years, I would argue. This would result in companies offering higher paying jobs to anyone that can create the Wams, even setting up training seminars to try and help others to be able to create them, while also putting heavy legal restrictions on the production of Wams by anyone except the government, by the government. Most likely, this would lead to Wam production tests becoming a staple of the education system, in which children are given classes on how to create Wams and tested to see if they can create them, leading to whichever children can do being highly incentivized to go into the Wam production industry, which would ultimately lead to the monopolization of an item that was given to humanity to be shared with humanity for free for all of humanity to have. How very human. That's depressing. I told you this video was going to be depressing. And yeah, it only gets worse from here. However, with the push towards the Wam, it would also most likely lead to the collapse of the global banking system as the value of oil and fuel drops to almost monetarily worthless, which would lead to mass tax increases to try and keep the economy afloat, leading to billions of people being unable to afford even the basics, which would even affect the billionaires, as chances are a large sum of their money would be in some way tied up in the oil or fuel production chain, which is on top of the essentially complete shutdown of the energy sector and the hundreds of millions left unemployed by that, as well as the unemployment and dissolvement of many other jobs that are somehow related to the chain of oil production that I am not smart enough to know. But I guarantee that somehow jobs you wouldn't even think were connected would be affected. Catering businesses, they no longer need to cater for big discussion venues, so they get shut down, or they're less profitable, so less companies need them. That would be affected. The catering industry would be injured, therefore the food industry would be injured, therefore the export of food would be injured, which would lead to less people needing food in certain situations, meaning that transport would become more expensive, I guess? Or the shipment of food, because they need to ship more food at a time to make a profit. Like I said, I don't know, I can't feel the chain, but I guarantee by shutting down the fact that we no longer need oil or fuel, there would be a long list of jobs that you wouldn't think were related but would be affected. So instead of looking at that, which I'm not smart enough to figure out, let's look at the social economic ideology brought up in a series about the fact of Japan possessing the Wams over any other country. Within the series, Yahakui shows up in Japan, however offers the gifts of the Wams to humanity, but needs to do it through the government of Japan, which leads to Japan solely possessing the Wams for a period of time. And there is a discussion of who should have jurisdiction over the Wams.
The only course of action is for Japan to hand over all of the Wam. They should be under the careful management of the UN.
We're talking about alien technology here, a source of infinite energy. To allow one country sole access to them, it could destabilize the socio-economic balance.
As well as addressing the fact that infinite power could irreparably damage the atmosphere's heat consumption, which the series does actually bring up, which is actually really cool.
The Wam don't emit even an infinitesimal trace of CO2. They are truly clean energy. But considering the fact they generate power infinitely, they could disrupt the atmosphere's heat supply and absorption balance.
So if we rely on the Wam too much, it could potentially contribute to global warming in the future?
Anything used excessively is bad for you. It's up to us to decide how bad it gets.
And yeah, infinite power is great for humanity, but it will also completely destroy the planet. The series brings up how the UN claims such tools should be held by the UN under the same standards of nuclear weapons.
The only course of action is for Japan to hand over all of the Wam. They should be under the careful management of the UN.
If the Wam are transferred over to the UN, the Security Council's permanent members will decide their fate. They'll mask their own financial interests with concerns for global safety, and they'll block all forms of proliferation. Nuclear weapons will be their only example. Even with the offer of infinite energy, is this pessimistic decision the best we can do?
However, the series also addresses how this is very clearly a tactic to withhold the Wams until they can find a way to financially benefit from the distribution of Wams, while also bringing up the rejection of planet-wide use of the Wams from countries who have a monetary incentive, such as certain countries who happen to have a ironclad grip on the monopoly of the planet of oil distribution that gives them a massive unfair advantage in monetary situations where they can strong arm the rest of the world if they want them to use their oil, which disproportionately benefits the billionaires of the world and makes an unfair playing field for other companies, which helps keep the billionaires as billionaires.
Only dissent I've heard so far has come from oil-producing countries.
They'll mask their own financial interests with concerns for global safety.
The Japanese government has broadcast their findings into how to make a WAM. With the media here, these detailed instructions have been shared with the whole world.
The WAM are gonna spread like a damn plague.
The 196 WAM are worthless now. They did this intentionally.
And I'm just going to repeat what I said in my other video about Kado because it's... I don't have a joke here. This is just the truth of the world, and it's really depressing, but also it's just true, so I'm going to say it. Go figure, those who face the possibility of losing their unimpeached stronghold over the world via a complete fabricated construct such as money that gives them an unfair advantage reject that which would put them on an equal playing field. Even though the Wams could produce unlimited clean energy for the world and every single person on Earth, the trade-off of every human in the world being helped is that the multi-billionaires might just have to go down to being slightly smaller multi-billionaires. Oh, the humanity! What should we choose? Do we help all of humanity, or do we make billionaires slightly less billionaires? Instead of having $100 billion, he only has 99 billion. Ooh, the choices are impossible to make! It's almost as if the series brings up the O2 real subject of the fact that the world is run by corrupt, self-centered, pathetic individuals who, despite claiming they're looking to help the world, would rather let billions of people massively suffer so they don't have to minutely suffer a small change that would still leave them with more money than any person actively trying to burn through their money could ever spend in a lifetime. Someone say hitting a little too close to home? Who said that? What? No, it's just a fun little anime. It's got no real world implications or truths in it that reflect the reality of the world and the truth of what would happen in such situations where if we found a way to save the world, the billionaires would still try and somehow monetize it so they keep the money that they have without putting themselves on equal footing, because that is humanity. That is the most human nature of all. What's that quote? As long as there are two people left in the world, there will always be one who wants more. Like I said, this video is depressing as hell. As well as how the series brings up the subject of the adverse effect of being able to power everything off the Wams, such as the heating of the planet. While the Wams put off zero emissions, if one singular pair of Wams were being used to power an entire town with no worries of overconsumption, houses could run every single electrical application on non-stop without fear of overloading the power grid. Such as in the case of many Bitcoin mining farms, which will have literal warehouses full of literally thousands of PlayStations constantly running, mining coin and getting very warm doing so. That heat eventually rises into the atmosphere, and the subsequent effect is the planet-wide temperature increases. And if the entire planet are using Wams without worrying of overloading the grid, the heat given off from each household would collectively lead to the planet's gradual temperature increase, which would lead to massive, irreversible environmental issues that would push many species extinct. Of course, this isn't even to address the fact that energy providers would still most likely charge people the same price they were paying for when the grid was powered by fossil fuel, which needed to be shipped and paid for, despite the fact that in having the grid run off Wams, energy providers essentially no longer do anything. So nothing really changes there actually. And most likely will only exist as an income stream for the government in which they can charge you for a service they don't even give. So nothing really changes there either. However, prevents the long-term abuse of overconsumption of power leading to environmental issues, which would most likely lead to a black market for Wams in which houses would run their own wiring off of the Wam as opposed to the energy providers, which would most likely trail back to the subject of the legality of Wam productions in the new society, and in having anyone who is found to be running their home off a non-government sanctioned Wam is either heavily fined or arrested, leading to civil unrest and eventual rioting, but I'll get more into that in a moment. Beyond the Wams, later on in the series, Yahakui offers humanity the Sansa, an object that allows humanity to no longer need to sleep, allowing humanity to live the additional 33% of their life they would have otherwise spent sleeping.
Well, on average, humans spend close to a third of their day sleeping. Without the need to sleep, productivity would increase by at least 33%. I can see the appeal, at least when it comes to getting things done.
I can still sleep if I want to. I just don't need to. It's more like a fun option now.
If there really aren't any downsides to it, then that is one hell of a gift.
On the surface level, this sounds like a good thing. This would allow people to live that third of their life they otherwise would have spent sleeping, allowing for a fuller life lived. And while that's true of the rich, wow. It's almost as if the fact I have to constantly bring back up the fact that the economic system we have in place, set up by the rich, funded by the rich, and influenced by the rich, disproportionately favours the rich when it comes to changes of the world that were ultimately decided by the rich that end up benefiting them while disadvantaging the rest of the world is in some way correlated to how screwed up the world is. Anyone else remember when GameStop stock shot? That's a tongue twister. GameStop stock shot. New tongue twister. I'm making so many tongue twisters today. But anyone else remember when the GameStop stock shot to record high numbers and the billion-dollar companies who would have suffered from shorting the stock, which I want to point out they did of their own volition and free will, knowing the risks that were included in such actions, were allowed to pause the purchase of any more GameStop stock until they themselves had obtained a positive net short position in which they benefited from the shorting. Whereas if it was the other way around, in which the rich were to benefit massively while the working class suffered, you know, there's not even like a, well, maybe, there's not even a discussion here. You know for a fact that if the rich were benefiting where the poor were suffering, the poor can just be like, can we pause trading until we fix this? No, that would not be allowed. The rich would be like, nah, you chose to invest in this stock. Yeah, we did. We chose to invest in this stock, just like you chose to invest in shorting. And when you were losing, you paused and changed the rules. That's not fair. That is corruption. Hey, one rule for us, different rule for the rich. This plan is so messed up. Maybe we should get Yahakui to sharp. Maybe humanity does need a restructuring. You depressed yet? I'm depressed. I'm not even halfway through the script yet, and I'm... Let's look like cute for a minute. Here's a picture of Kitten. Yay! Kitten! Less depressed. I'm staring into my light right now. I'm not seeing a kitten. I'm still horribly depressed about this, but you saw a kitten, so yay, kitten. I'm blind. I stared directly into my blinding light. To this day, legitimately, how was the GameStop stock short pausing legal? I don't get it. Like, it was legal, but how was it legal? Humanity's screwed, man. Anyway, back to my main, slightly less depressing point. While the choice to never need to sleep again would allow for the rich to live their fullest life because they don't need to spend 8 hours a day sleeping, although I would argue that the rich are already living their fullest life. They can do whatever they want and sleep whenever they want. It's great for them. Never mind that they're, getting that 8 hours sleep off the backs of others who aren't getting that 8 hours, probably only getting 4 hours. For the rest of the working class though, the reality of no longer needing to sleep would lead to the gradual shift of society to change the law to ultimately abolish the 48-hour week work limit and instead push for a much longer work week where shifts would go from 8 hours to upwards of 12 or even 15 hours a day. And with the need to no longer ever sleep, certain mass production companies which manage to produce such high volumes of products through certain means, possibly unethical, can't say for certain, would enact a 20 or even 24-hour work shift. And yes, I do want to quickly address, because I know this thing in Japan where people will work more than 48 hours a week, but a lot of times you're being paid for the 48 hours, Oh, you want to voluntarily do additional hours so someone else isn't given your workload so you're not needed for this job anymore? Oh, thank you. That was slightly racist, I think. Whoopsie. That was me just being cocky. Kind of, here, thanks. Thanks for doing these extra hours voluntarily. It's not that I'm holding your job hostage. You're volunteering for this job. Thank you so much for agreeing to do 200 hours of unpaid work for the company because you care about it so much. I mean, if you didn't do these 200 hours, I'm not saying you would lose your job, but, you know, there's someone else that could do your job, and if they're doing the job, they'd be given the work, so, you know. Society is so messed up. This video is so depressing. Why did I make this video? I don't want to make the world any worse. I want something less depressing. And in working much longer shifts, those unethical jobs, despite earning the same amount of money, would be working significantly more hours, which would lead to earning significantly more money, leading to companies having to increase the price of products to pay their employees, meaning that even if you are making twice as much money, if the price of everything in the world also doubles, overall you're still paying the same amount of money for the product, the numbers are just bigger, which would also lead to companies needing less employees, as instead of needing 2 employees to work 2 8-hour shifts, companies could legally hire one person to work a singular 16-hour shift, which would instantly cut the job market in half, leading to mass unemployment, which is on top of the reduction of almost the entire energy sector and all the jobs that would have been lost through the introduction of the Wams, leading to, in the best case scenario, only having enough jobs to fill 1/3 of the population of those searching for work, or in the worst case, upwards of only enough jobs for 1/5 of the human population, resulting in billions of people being out of work, not having any jobs, having no money, and being unable to afford rent. And this is where the civil unrest and rioting would come in having so few jobs anymore, and the value of everything massively being inflated due to longer working hours and employees needing to pay more, meaning they need to earn more to pay their employees. Those without a job would struggle to get any money or even be able to scrape by paying their bills each month by the thinnest of margins, which would be compounded by the fact that energy companies are still charging full price for their services despite only offering a sliver of the value the services you actually pay for, resulting in mass homelessness, leading to giant homeless camps becoming commonplace all over the world, similar to Hooverville in the Great Depression. However, most likely the camps would set up home in abandoned mega malls which were unable to stay afloat after the mass unemployment hit, causing the entire economy to collapse. And with no money to spend, such businesses would go out of business and be abandoned, which would lead to someone within the camp obtaining a Wam, which could be used to power the entire abandoned mega mall, allowing for the homeless camps to have power and create a self-sustaining community within the mall, where humanity would no longer trade money but instead barter with goods and or services, most likely relying on basic agricultural trading systems such as using the shops as greenhouses to grow crops, which with such unemployment, the rich would become the 0.01%, those who have any job would become the 1%, and the rest of the world of the unemployed would make up the rest of the 98.99%, which would most likely lead to those with working class back-breaking labour jobs where they work 16 hours a day just to earn enough to scrape by, realising it isn't worth it, and realising that the idea of quitting and joining the ever-growing camps around the world in which life is simpler and less soul-sucking actually sounds quite nice, resulting in the gradual reduction of those in monetary jobs until all that remains are the mega rich of the world who still cling to their money, trying to maintain their comfy lifestyle. However, without anyone to maintain that life for them, it would quickly collapse, as if the rest of society has agreed that money has no value anymore. The rich are no longer rich and would end up either choosing to join a camp and work to earn their keep, or die, ultimately ending up with a world revolving around cohabitation and mutual sustainability similar to the Amish, just with electricity, which actually sounds quite nice, and that is kind of where humanity does need to go. That is the best case scenario though. Let's instead look at the more likely outcome of how the Wams would affect the world. The best case scenario is presuming the camps ever get that far, Chances are, as soon as the mall is run off an unsanctioned Wam, the police would be sent in to remove it, which would lead to at least one of them living in the mall to fight back against the system that had pushed them to the point that they are living in tents in a mall. And all it takes is one person to start a rebellion. In one singular person fighting back against the officer trying to take away the Wam, those who are friends with the instigator would back them up, and then their friends would back them up, which would lead to the police either getting pushed out and coming back with more officers, or resorting to lethal force, which would incite the entire community within the camp to rise up, leading to others who feel crushed under the Wams Sansa system, leading to more and more people joining the fight against those in power, leading to guerrilla factions popping up all over the world, trying to overthrow the system, and gradually, with each side having to respond in kind, becoming more and more destructive until the whole world economy collapses due to the planet-wide infighting, and society has to start again on equal footing, where the concept of money no longer plays a role in the world, and instead the entire world exists on a barter-trade community-based system in which Wams and Sunders are shared among the entire world, where everyone lives a much simpler life, similar to that of the Amish, just with technology. So in the end, society does end up in the same position, without technology and return to the basics. Just one path is, quite easy, the other one is paved with blood. Which was Yahokui's initial desire. He wanted humanity to exist as one on equal footing. And if we ignore the fact that his ultimate plan would have pretty much eradicated all of humanity, I think his ideology was pretty good. It's a good idea. But humanity is full of humans and humans are humans. An interesting point of note though is the fact that we have no way of knowing what the damage of the Sansa would be on the child mind. Children have the most significant growth when they're asleep. While those who have witnessed the Sansa can sleep, they don't have to. And how many times did you actually go to sleep when your parents told you to? I didn't. I slept way too late. That's why I've got bags on my eyes. I'm still 6'4", so if I had slept I'd probably be like 7'2", but go to sleep, get your 8 hours, it's important. It's good for your mental health. Just PSA. Yeah. Step aside, yeah. Get your 8 hours. It's important. Do sleep when you can. Don't stay up late and drink water. If you haven't drank water today, go drink some water. I have to drink some water, I can feel my throat getting sore. Important message, stay hydrated, get your 8 hours, eat your veg, be happy, and let's not be depressed about the world. Let's try and make it better. I don't know how to do that, but let's try. That would have been a really good place to end the video, but I've got more to say. As well as the fact that the footage of the Sansa would become the next Rickroll. However, instead of being a meme, such a video would be an act of neurological violence. Quote unquote pranksters, pranksters doing pranks and not criminal activity that they are recording and uploading to YouTube for free, proving they have committed criminal activity, would most likely intersperse the Sansa in their videos as a prank. Others would create bots that spam the video out, and others who have already seen the Sansa would think it harmless and post it as a meme response. Not to mention the depressing fact that most of the world would sell or kidnap those with the ability to create Wams to profit off of it by robbing them of their freedom. I don't have a bit for that. That's just, if only some people in the world can make this item, people are going to kidnap them. That's depressing as hell, and sad truth of the world. Human greed. And finally, there is the Nomus, which is a thing that allows humanity to basically rewrite gravity or the basic fundamentals of what we understand as science. They can change the gravity, they can change its weight, its mass, the speed of something, the velocity. They can control what should be absolute in the universe.
I will translate it into the most simple terms for you to understand. Gravitational control, inertial control, mass control. It provides absolute control, not only of your universe, the Nomus will also aid humanity's command of the anisotropic. Can you imagine what this device has to offer humanity?
I can. For starters, product distribution, transportation, space exploration. This will revolutionize them all. The very concept of labor will be transformed. Everything will. Reality as we know it will be redefined.
And I am not smart enough to map out how this would lead to destruction of humanity, but I can definitively say that it would lead to destruction of humanity. I just don't know how. If someone really wanted to, they could change the gravitational pull and mass of the moon to pull it closer to Earth, leading to planet-wide catastrophic ramifications, which, you know, would kind of eradicate humanity and make a new flood of the world. Maybe that's what Noah's Ark was. Maybe a nice astronic being showed up and was like, hey, here's this flood. Oh, they destroyed the world. Let's just push the moon back out into space. Whoopsie daisy. But yeah, that is what I think would happen if humanity were given the gifts of the anisotropic and the series hadn't played out how it had and such items were integrated into society. It would spell the end of humanity, and humanity would either collapse, humans would go extinct, or humanity would be returned to a basic life living where society is none of what it is and money no longer plays a role in the world. Which actually sounds quite nice. Maybe we should have let it happen. Of course, I wouldn't have this luxury of recording videos and uploading them to YouTube. I guess I could still, because we have the Sansa's, although the Wams, which will allow for video production. Who knows? Yeah. You know, actually, yeah, Kui, you're up there? You somewhere? Can you come down to Earth and you, like, do that stuff? God? Hello? Fifth dimensional being? Anyone? I like the sound of that. Can we make the world like it would it be in my depressing future? Please? Hello? Anyone? No? Well, I guess we have to wait a little longer. And why not? Why not? And while you're waiting for the world to end in this apocalyptic manner, why not check out another video? There's some great ones in the video that... I am tripping on my word. There are some great ones on the channel that are less depressing and pretty good. Check out the Attack on Titan is a Lie timeline. That is probably my favourite video I've ever made ever. Is it up yet? I don't know. Probably not. I don't know if this video is going live, but if it is, if not, subscribe and make sure to have notifications on for when that video does come out. I talk way too fast when I get excited. Yeah, make sure to have, if you've enjoyed this video to the extent that one can enjoy such a video, yeah, subscribe and keep notifications on, because legitimately, that Attack on Titan video, Attack on Titan's Timeline is a Lie, is probably my favourite video I have ever made, ever. And I'm so excited to make more videos. Until next time, thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about this idea in the comment section below, because this is a very fascinating subject that I think merits a deeper discussion. And give me recommendations for other series that I could do something like this with, because I want to like deep dive into the ramifications of such series, because I think it's a fascinating subject. I just can't think of any other series that currently really there. Maybe Kaiju, that could be a good one. Or maybe Kaiji as well. Attack on Titan would be interesting. There's a few actually. I can make a few videos on these, so be sure to subscribe to make sure you catch with them. And if you're not turning notifications on, okay, I guess my videos aren't good enough. Oh, my poor heart. See you next video.